I have returned for part 2 to this art room makeover video. If you've watched the first part of this makeover, you'll know that I started out by making a list of to-dos that I wanted to get done in the space. And in that whole video, I only managed to tick off one thing from my to-do list, which was a makeover to my IKEA Scadis pegboard. And while that did take forever, I am really pleased with it. It sets the tone for how I want the rest of the room to look. You should go and watch that video first. Also, you should like and comment and subscribe. Thank you! Since I made that video, I have been working on a number of projects in this space, for this space, and I've allowed it to get really messy because despite being generally quite organised and anal, when I'm in a creative making mood, I can't be thinking about keeping things tidy, so I just let it go to shit a little bit. I want to do a big reorganise and clean session. I wanted to reorganise the storage slightly. I might move some things into other places in the flat if I feel like they're not that useful in here. So what I'm going to do is take most of the stuff in this room out of this room so that I have somewhat of a blank slate to tidy, clean, organise, and we'll chat through that as we go. So first of all, let's get to clearing. This is actually the backing piece for my underbed storage drawers, which I moved in here a while ago because I wanted an extra surface. But I think I'm going to move it back underneath the bed because I want this space more opened up, I think. I don't want anything blocking it, so this one can go. I have a laminator and I've literally never used this, but my mum gave it me and I thought at some point I'm sure I would love to laminate something, so I'll keep it. These don't need to be living in here. You can see how lots of the woodwork in this room is yellowing, up here particularly. So I think I'm going to take the opportunity while I do this to repaint the woodwork. The question is, do I paint it white again? Do I keep it white or do I paint the trim a colour? I'm thinking about how I want the room to flow, and I'm wondering if I need to be moving this number sideways. It will create more room in this zone, which could be useful. I don't know for what yet. I'm going to try it out. I'm going to move it, see if I like it, and then I'll know if that's what I'm working towards or not. I'm thinking maybe it will make the desk feel cozy if it's all tucked in nicely. And then as you come into the room, you'll see that first. I don't know. Yeah, no, I hate it. I'm going to put it back. I'm not going to get anywhere before I paint these things because there's no point putting things back just to have to move them again to paint. So I have emptied it out. We're going to hoover and we're going to paint all of these yellowy trims. I'm telling myself that I am only going to paint the yellowing bits of trim. I know that the bits that I paint today will be more white than the other bits in the room, and that will annoy me and I will be tempted to move everything and paint all of the trim, but it's just not necessary. And I have to remind myself that I can only do what I can do. The things in this flat are never going to be perfect or all finished at the same time, and the bits I'm painting today are actually mostly going to be covered up anyway, so why am I doing this even? This is very old paint, so how separated it's going to be is a question. Does not want to open. This is what happens when you don't keep your paint tins clean. Just let it get welded shut and then be angry with yourself next time you try and open it. That's the good old-fashioned way. It's got a caramel swirl. Mix it all back in together. Gauze paint always separates, it's not anything to worry about. We just remix it and then we slap it on. Naturally, I'm doing exactly what I said I wouldn't do and painting more than originally planned, but as you paint, the bits that weren't looking yellow before suddenly do look yellow. So I'm going to go up to the end of the skirting board there and do the fireplace as well. The plan was to do a lot of organising today, but because I got sidetracked by this painting, I'm actually going to rearrange and organise things a bit more tomorrow. I've just finished on all of the woodwork that needed painting, and I have decided, because I'm very annoying and clearly I hate myself, to also paint the floor. It has quite a lot of chips and different things in it. A fresh coat of paint over the top will look really good. Can't be bothered to move the rug or anything else, so I'm just going to paint around it, the bits that are visible, because those are bits that matter, and that's not very interesting to watch. So while I do this, I thought I would take you back in time to discuss the first DIY project that I am doing on this room, which is for the top of my cupboard up there. So let's roll the clip of that now. I've been using the top surface of this cupboard to store extra material, frames, old artworks, etc. And it's a really good out-of-the-way place for this. Up until now, I've been using these empty desktop drawer shelves as storage up there, but they're a bit annoying in that they limit the height of the items I can store. So I needed a new solution, something that will keep my frames upright and organised, which doesn't have any height limit and which looks cuter than it does now. If you remember from my first video on this makeover, I had a few of these MDF strips going begging, which I used a couple of to make shelves for my pegboard. And I thought I could make use of another one of these for this DIY. Here's the plan. I'll use one of these strips as a backboard, which I will screw into the wall. Then I will create arches coming off of the wall piece, which I can attach to the top of the cupboard to create sturdy separators, which I can lean items up against and keep them organised. If you know me, you'll know that I love paper mache, so this is going to be made predominantly from cardboard, newspaper and toilet roll. I started off by making a basic frame from cardboard and masking tape so that I could test out the angles and sizing and stuff before I committed to the paper mache. So it's going to attach to the wall here, and then these arches will be what the frames can lean up against and also the walls, but they'll be really reinforced and strong. As we can see at the moment, she's very flimsy indeed. So I'm just going to build it up to make it a stronger frame to paper mache on top of. Once I was happy with the shape, I covered the whole frame with multiple layers of paper mache. I used newspaper on the bottom to build up strength and toilet paper on top of that, which really softens out the curves. This was about a week's worth of paper mache, doing it in multiple layers and letting those dry in between. So this is after the first layer of the loo roll paper mache is dried, and it's looking very scrappy, but that's to be expected. As you can see, it's currently a little bit flimsy, which for this project will not do because this needs to be holding heavy frames in place. Once it's got a few more layers of paper mache, it will be a lot stronger, but I am also adding these little tabs, and this will just be a little area that I can put a screw through into the top of the wardrobe to keep them in place, and then probably needs 3 or 4 more coats to be honest before sanding and stuff, and I'll show you how it's looking prior to painting. I think it's got the tabs which I'll drill holes through. I need to drill holes through the back to go on the wall, and it needs sanding and sealing and painting. You can see it's quite textured at the moment, and I need to sand that all back so that it's a little bit smoother. This is going to be rainbow colours, so I'm going to start by penciling on outlines of where I'm painting each colour because that will make life easier for me, and then I'll get to painting. I used acrylic paint and built up the vibrancy of the colours with multiple coats. It's a bit messy, but I'm going over it and tidying it as I do the next portion. So I am very nearly done with painting this. It's been an awkward shape to paint. I've had it in some interesting angles. It's got between 2 and 3 coats of paint on each colour because the first coat just looks pretty patchy. This has taken a bit longer than what I expected, but I think it's turned out okay. At the moment, you know when you're making something and you've been looking at it a lot, and despite the fact that this very much looks like how I intended it to look, I am questioning whether I like it. Often the question comes up with some things that I'm drawn to. Is this too juvenile? Because I do like some childish elements, I suppose, in design, but I don't want this room to look like a nursery. But then I remind myself that I need to not worry so much about the things I'm making for my own home, because it's only me who has to live with my design decisions, and things can always be changed. Like, if I decide that I don't like this as rainbows, then I could just paint it in a solid colour and it could just be arches. But considering I've spent so long freehanding these rainbow colours, I am gonna persevere, get it finished and installed so that I can get an idea of if I actually like it. We are very nearly done now. Progress is being made, whether or not I'm pleased with it. Painting time is complete, and I also decided to paint the back of this pink for literally no reason, because that side is going to be screwed up against the wall. It just feels more complete to me. If I'm making something, I want to dot my I's and cross my T's and paint the back of things pink. Once the paint was dry, I went over the whole thing with a sealing coat of Mod Podge and then set it to one side to install once the room was clear. All the painting is done. It's looking much fresher, nice and empty and big as well. Floor is chalk paint, so it dries really quickly. And this is how we are looking. The only problem is that everything that came out of here is now just everywhere. It's all in the hallway, it's in the bedroom, and it's in the living room too. I can't start putting stuff back in the room today because the paint is still wet and I don't want to be scuffing it. But I do want to start organising some of this stuff because I've just made it really chaotic. I don't know why I do this. When I went to take everything out of that room, I thought I'm going to put it all into easily recognisable piles. And I didn't do that. I just threw it anywhere. But I've made room in this here cupboard in my hallway, and I've got this whole big shelf empty now, and this is going to be my cardboard shelf. I have a shit ton of cardboard because I do a lot of paper mache and paper crafts. When I order something or get some cardboard in, I just keep it. But I have a lot of it, and I've decided I can keep as much cardboard as I can fit in this shelf. The rest of it is going to the recycling. And here we have it. I've got all my cardboard here, I've got card envelopes there, I have mailing bags there, and I think I'll put my postage scales and labels here. So this is like, well, cardboard and mailing shelf just above the loo roll, which is grand. And that will save me a lot of room because I used to have all the cardboard down under here. So now I can use this space for something else that I'm accessing more frequently. After filming these clips, I started feeling really overwhelmed and actually had to take a bit of a break to calm myself down. By the evening though, I was recalibrated and I sat down to film a short pep talk to myself to summarise the day. I'm sitting here this evening after painting the floor and whatnot, and I told you I was going to do some organising. I stocked that cupboard back up, so I got some stuff in there, and then I have been folding scrap fabric. So I've got coloured fabric here in this one, and I have neutral fabric in this one. I did have scrap fabric in these before, but they were not this well organised, and now they are, and they'll go back into my art room tomorrow. So we're all on schedule. Tomorrow I'm planning to get loads of stuff back in that room. I want to put my rainbow divider up and get all the frames back in there, and then I can get stuff kind of laid out how I want it to figure out the other things on my to-do list. We're all nice and empty now. Empty. Okay, let's chat about this here corner above my computer. If you watched my first video, which you should have, you would know that the plan was to make this big paper mache leg shaped shelf to go in this corner. I was really excited about it and I thought this is going to be great, I can have all this stuff on it. And as I was approaching to start the idea, I started realising that it probably wasn't going to work. I want the shelving above the computer to be relatively strong, and obviously paper mache, as much as I love it, has its limitations. So I've scrapped that idea temporarily, but I still want some shelving up here. So today I went to the junk shop and I found a set of shelves. These are wooden folding shelves. They're pretty well made, albeit they're a bit grubby. They've got some marks and some discoloration. It's obviously got some water damage, but they were only £8, and I think it's going to hopefully work well in this space. Once it's up, it's pretty sturdy. It's got these nice bits there, and I'm hoping it'll be a pretty good fit to have my printer and whatnot on there, and then I can have space above the printer for books and things. Weirdly enough, I saw a shelf more or less exactly like this at a charity shop a while ago, and I nearly bought it. I think it was £20, and then I was not sure about it. So I left it, and I ended up going back because I decided I did want it, and it was gone, which is always the way. But I found this one, which is more or less the same. Got this pot mark there. It might be a case that it needs painting, but I'm not sure if I'm going to have time to sand it back and refinish it in this video. I have a friend coming to stay later on this week. She'll be sleeping in the living room, and at the moment the living room is just absolutely full of shite, so I really need to get things back in here before she comes. And obviously if I'm sanding this, painting it or staining it or whatever, it needs dry time, etc., and I don't think I'll be able to get it done in time. For the sake of this video, I'm going to give it a good clean now, get it as nice as I possibly can, and then at a later date I can go back and actually finish it. It's funny how much other people's dirt is way more gross than your own dirt. My flat's pretty gross at the moment because I've been focusing on doing this room, but I can see through my own filth a lot of time. But when it's stuff that you don't know where the grub came from, that mystery just makes it all the more grim. Despite the general muckiness, which you kind of always expect from a junk shop, it is in good condition. No serious issues with it, and everything that is wrong with it is something that I feel comfortable to fix, but like I said, that'll happen at a later date. One of the to-dos that I had on my spreadsheet for this room was to find more storage for ongoing projects. I'm wondering whether I should use this for that, or whether I should move something from somewhere else, free up space for that elsewhere, and then just use this for sketchbooks and whatnot, which I think would look nice. But yeah, all in all, I'm happy with this. I'm also going to take down this painting, which is just a painting that I did quite a number of years ago. Once the shelves are up, it's going to be too long, and to be honest, I'm sick of looking at it. And instead I'm going to put up this painting, which is a mid-century landscape. It says Winton 1974, painted by Brian Evans. Got this a while ago in a charity shop. Landscapes aren't usually something that I'm that into, but I just really liked the colours and the kind of darkness of this one. I think it will look really good over the top of the shelves, so take this one down and then I can get the new one up. Perfecto. And yes, I am listening to Risa Tisa. Look how perfectly that fits between there. Got my printer plugged in. That's a good spot for that. This is where I will keep my multi-plug. I can have my lamp on there and some other bits. It's a nice load more storage. And I think it looks good. From this angle when you come in, it looks all right. Fair, the room feels huge at the moment because it's not got all the rubbish in it that it usually does, but
the shelves were up and I was excited by all of the new surface storage options. So excited that I gave this lengthy show and tell of all the things I could put on here.
Little 19-year-old Ems just trying her best and failing a lot of the time.
But as I was filming, I kept changing my mind about where things should go, and I was overthinking what was going to go on all of the other shelves in the room.
Got more surface options. I can't decide where things should go. I want it to all be in the best place for each individual thing, but that's changeable.
Then I was obsessing about all of the piles of stuff currently scattered everywhere around the flat, and I was really starting to feel overwhelmed again. So I realised I needed to temporarily pivot my attentions onto something practical in order to avoid complete brain overload. I decided that a good place to start in organising this room would be to put away all of my loose frames. So I turned my attention back to finishing up that rainbow divider. First thing I need to do is drill some holes into the back of it so that I can screw it into the wall. I'm going to do 4 screws to make sure it's really firmly attached, and then I'm also going to be screwing in these bottom bits as well, but I won't need to drill these ones because these are just card. I'm using the smallest drill bit that I've got. I love the smell of drilling. It just smells incredible. Switching out to a bigger drill bit to match the size of my plugs. This is the moment of truth. It's always nerve-wracking when you get to the end of a project and you've put in all this time and energy and you're not fully convinced whether or not it's going to work. If this looks shit or if it won't hold the frames up or whatever. I've wasted a considerable amount of time, but I have faith that it will function as desired. I've secured these in at the bases as well so that they're nice and sturdy and will be able to hold frames well. So this is it. I think I'm happy with how it looks. I got my rainbow dividers secured to the wall and up. And now I can start putting things back up there. So I'll start out with the bigger things that are gonna go up here, lean against the wall there. These are all things that I intend to do something with at some point or that need to get hung elsewhere in the flat. And for now, this is a good little hidey hole for them. Some drawings I've done. My red mounts, this mirror which is going up in the hallway when it's done. It definitely works as planned, which is fab. I bought this from a car boot sale for £1 and I actually don't know what I'm going to do with it, but it just made me laugh. It's actually funny to me how little you're going to be able to see these rainbows that I spent so long on. But c'est la vie. I've got these cork floor tiles and I use these for painty clay projects just as a base. Try and do it in size order. I think that's all the stuff that I particularly want up here, so that means I've got more space when I come to fill up the rest of the room. I can just add to it as and when with things that I come across, because there's going to be more things hiding, there always fucking is. It is a new day and I woke up reinvigorated and determined to get the room into some kind of order. First on the agenda was a sort out of my under-desk cable clutter, which has been looking messy and terrible for months. At the moment the setup is pretty shitty. I've got my multi-plug there with a cable nest and then I put my router in this wooden box. I don't even know why really, because it doesn't look good in there. So I just want to tidy this up. And the thought I have is to use this IKEA mop drawer kind of shells. The drawers are out of it because I use them somewhere else. They're in the kitchen actually. But this I used to have on top of the cupboard where the rainbow divider now is. And I think this could be a handy little thing to use under here. So I can have my router on the top. I can use these for the multi-plug. The cables can go down the back because there is a gap down there. So I think this could be the solution we're looking for. And I'm going to try and get this all tidied up. I've got some cable ties that I can use to secure any extra long cables. I'm just going to see if I can get it a bit neater than it is now. Let's give it a hoover. The dust is gone and I'm going to put this in place and see if I can make it work. So that the cables don't come out the front, I think what I need to do is cut out a section of that back panel that I can feed the cables through, and then it'll keep it all a lot neater. So the hole in the back of this needs to be big enough to be able to slot the heads of these through so that I can keep my multi-plugs inside it and the cables can come out the back. So to make the hole, I'm literally just gonna drill some small holes until I have a hole. It's not gonna be very neat. I quite literally just make things up as I go along. As long as the end result
is what I want it to be. The process doesn't really matter. Stunning. I'm literally just going around with a drill, drilling more holes and then like slamming it in between. This isn't how you should do it, but it's how I'm doing it. Now that's what I call a professional job. Moment of truth. I didn't make the hole big enough for these big plugs, so I need to cut it again. Let's do what I was supposed to do the first time and test it with the biggest plug. Okay, yes, this now will work. It's a good excuse to use the one file that I own. I don't even know why I have this. Don't remember buying it. The hole is bigger. Okay, she's back in place, and now I'm gonna set it all up. Got my multi-plug. This has an annoyingly long cable. It could be worth for someone else to get a new one with a shorter cable, but seems wasteful to me. So I'm just gonna use this and then I'll cable tie the excess.
I got everything plugged in and switched on, and here is how it looks. It's a definite improvement on the sad wooden box that was there before, so I'm happy, and I can tick this off my list. While we're under the desk, let's take a minute to talk about the desk. This desk is actually this table from IKEA, and I love it as an art room desk for multiple reasons. Firstly, it's very deep, which is what I need because when I make things, I really need to be able to spread out. Secondly, it's very versatile for smaller spaces. It's a double-sided drop leaf table, which means that it can be folded down actually very small if you need to make extra room, and I've definitely made use of this when I was working on a big project and needed a lot of floor space in here. And then the third reason why I love this table for an art room is that with slight modifications it provides the perfect storage solution for paper rolls, which is lucky for me and essential because I have many. The table comes with 6 wooden drawers in the centre, and I decided to take these out to use them as storage boxes in my utility room now, which they are perfect for. Where the drawers used to be, I added these basic mount board shelves that I just cut out myself at home, and then stapled some fabric straps to each side to keep things in place. I've had this solution set up for ages now, and I don't see any reason to change it, but I did want to give it a sort out and try and free up some extra space. Couldn't remember what 80% of it was down here. So let's take a trip down memory lane. So here's all my rolls of stuff that were on this shelf, and firstly I'm going to sort through the ones I want to keep and the ones I want to not keep. I've got lots of old drawings and stuff. I still like these, so I'm going to keep them. I'm going to roll them all up together nice and tight. Got my ball of string here to tie things with. Old painting, could use that for collage or something. I'm gonna end up keeping all of this, I can feel it, but at least I'll know what's in here if I look at all of them. Squeeze that inside of that. Save on string. Old scrappy bit of paper. Get rid. Gilbert and George poster. I do have an intention of putting this up at some point, but I don't know where. I used to have it in my bedroom in the house I used to live in. It's a bit of a controversial piece, so now it can just get re-rolled and put away. Contact paper, never used. Keep. This is a pretty terrible painting. Maybe I want to keep it. This is just lining paper. This is handy to have, but I'm going to cut off the scraggly extra. So get rid of that, keep that. I might want to reuse it. More lining paper, tissue paper, brown paper, keep. I did this a few years ago when I was really depressed. It had 3 panels, but when you spend so long on something, you don't want to just bin it. More drawings, that one's shit. Empty paper, keep. Finally, live drawing that I think my mum did, so keep. So despite only getting rid of a couple of things, I do now have a much smaller, neater pile that I can put away. Finally, I was in an organisational mood, and I really enjoyed spending the rest of the day sorting through all of the stuff that I'd left littered around the flat for days, and I brought it all back into the room. Most of the shelved storage didn't change drastically, but I made sure to sort through each of the storage containers and take note of everything I was bringing back into the room. It's nice to spend a bit of quality time with your craft materials sometimes, and I find that reorganising them can help to remind me of projects that I've half forgotten or inspire me to make completely new things that I hadn't thought about before. I I was sorting, I came across this, which is a VHS tape that I got a couple of years ago from a charity shop. And I'm guessing it is of an artist's performance. It's from the Steinbaum Kraus Gallery in New York. And it says Karen Thompson, woman, goddess, mad dog. 1998. And I'm desperate to watch this, but I don't have a VHS player, so for now we keep hold of it until the day comes where I can stick it on and see what Karen's all about. These are the kinds of things I hoard. And I have this really beautiful Art Deco vintage bowl, which has got these rainbow arches on it, which mirrors the rainbow at the top of these shelves. And in here I keep an assortment of ribbon and string. Much the same as before, but I've sorted through stuff, got rid of stuff, cleaned it, tidied it and put it back. It is slightly different. Obviously all the cardboard that used to be down there now lives in my hallway cupboard. And then coming on over here, these shelves, similar thing, just cleaning and organising. And I now do have this extra empty shelf, which I'll either find something to fill in the process of doing this makeover, or I can leave it as empty space again to keep things which are works in progress, because it's good to have options for empty space. I've got these paper clips which currently live in here, and I want to move them into one of these tubs. I've already got a couple of them. Hemming tapes in there, I've got safety pins in there, and I have a new one to use. This is a vitamin E all over body cream, which I get from Superdrug, and I really like the pots. They are nice and sturdy plastic, and they have a nice nudie pink top. They're screw top and they're just handy, and it is nice to have things all in the same type of tub. So I'm going to move them into here. You would pay decent money for a tub like this if you were buying it as an organisational thing, but if you buy it for body cream, get the win-win of also being able to moisturise ahead of time, and you'll just grow a matching set of tubs as and when you run out. It's paper clips, 1 word or 2 words. Job done. Another great thing about these is that they're stackable. I'm also in the process of unravelling some wool projects that I don't need to keep. Next thing on my list is to redo all the labels on these. They are just Sharpie written on masking tape, which I stuck on ages ago. And to be honest, I really like how it looks. I don't want to use the label maker on these because I feel like it will just look too labelly. So I'm just going to redo these in the same way, peel them off and do new ones. Much better. Didn't realise how yellow they were until I switched them over. Looks a lot tidier and more uniform again now. In here I've got my tripod, I've got my filming arm, I've got my studio light, so it's photography stuff in here. And that just slots right under there. Finally making a real dent in this. I feel like I've been on it for weeks at this point. Okay, so after what has felt like an extraordinarily long few days of cleaning and organising, I'm going to show you where we're up to with the room. It's not finished, but most things are where they need to be. So we're in a good position to continue after my friend has been and gone, and then I can finish ticking off the last few projects on my spreadsheet. So here we are as we stand. We've got fabric storage. These things are going to be on the wall up there. Our pegboard, which we worked on in the last video. Under here, got my camera stuff, paper rolls, etc. This shelf's now got sketchbooks, my speaker. Second shelf is for ongoing kind of smaller projects. Coming over here, I've got more sketchbooks, paint, ink, more camera things, other stationery. I've brought my big paper rolls back in and popped them back there. Dividers up there are half full. Top shelf up here has odds and ends that I can use for projects. Spare decor that needs to find a place in the flat eventually. Dye, fabric paint, steamer, doll parts. Again, these are bits for projects. I've got a little shelf for clay. Down here we've got sewing machine, odds and ends in pots. In here I've got stuffing for pillows or whatnot, embroidery stuff, edging. I've got my embroidery hoop there, sewing machine things. In here we've got my label makers, envelopes, postage stuff, and on top of it we've got some empty containers, which again I like to keep. So if I'm making something I need to chuck everything from a project into one container, I can just grab one of those. Then this is more packing stuff. It's got bubble wrap, paper and whatnot in there. I think once this room is all done, it will be functioning even better than it was before. I am very pleased with how she's looking. The final thing I needed to put away was my collection of wool, and unsurprisingly I decided to add another to-do to my list and make a DIY floating shelf to hold it all. This is another paper mache project which took an ungodly amount of time. So while I enjoy a lovely weekend with my friend in the present, you can all jump back to the past when I started making it. Okay, so today I'm getting started on my swirly wool shelf for up there. Cut out these long strips of cardboard and just had to attach them together to make it one long piece. And then I'm adding more cardboard to strengthen and create the shape. And I'm just putting this together with masking tape at the moment before we paper mache. So this will be like this. Once I was happy with the shape, I started paper macheing. This is what I've done so far. I don't know how many layers of paper mache this is going to need to make it sturdy enough, but this is only going to hold wool, so it doesn't need to be super heavy duty. So it's the day after I did the first coat of paper mache and it's looking pretty good. Here she is. As you can see, she's still very springy, which I'm not concerned about because I'm going to do a couple more coats on this, and also it's not fully dry yet. And paper mache, when it's still wet, it's very pliable. You can still kind of bend and warp it, and then when it dries, it really strengthens up. I'm going to do a few more coats of paper mache on this and let it fully dry before doing anything else with it. So I'll check back in with you once it is a bit more solid, a bit more finished, and then we can talk about paint. She's dry. It really holds its shape. It's springy and it's going to be attached onto the wall through this back panel, so I could stretch it out a bit if I wanted, or I could have it more close. Happy with how it was looking, I decided that it was time to paint. And this is where I think I made a mistake. I'm using regular wall emulsion on this because it's way cheaper than using acrylic paint and I have a shitload of it. So it will work just as well, and I'll still seal it with Mod Podge. I've been questioning myself as I'm doing it because once it got painted, it's fallen in on itself. You can see all of the kind of ridges that to me just makes it obvious that it's made of cardboard. So I'm thinking I'm going to make a load more work for myself and go over the ridges with glue roll to try and even out the shape because I really want it smooth. What started out as a plan to just fill in the ridges with toilet roll became resurfacing the whole thing with toilet roll, which was a long, sticky job which took so many days to dry. It always looks worse before it looks better. Trust the process. The good news is though, it's a lot less ridgy than it was. So she's currently looking crusty as hell. You can see that the surface now is quite rough. So next on the agenda is sanding. Ugh, my most hated thing. And this is how it looks after sanding. It looks the same, very much the same, but it is much smoother now and is ready for painting. I'm using a fan brush because you get a nice even application with one of these. Also, this is a new brush and it feels really good. I used acrylic paint this time around and applied 2 coats over 2 days. I finally sealed it with Mod Podge and set it to one side, ready to hang. I have returned. I've had a lovely weekend with my friend visiting and now we're back into it, and the day has finally come to hang this bloody shelf. I'm really happy with it now. Since it's been sealed with the Mod Podge, it's really holding its shape again. Obviously it's a little bit warped at the moment when you just hold it up, but it's feeling strong and I think it's going to work really well. Now it's going to go above this thing here, and I'm also going to be hanging this vintage red mirror that I got not that long ago from a charity shop for £2.50, and it was in my recent haul video if you wanted to watch that. This is going up next to it. I also want to leave space on the top here for my knitting needles to go. So I'm just going to put things in place and get an idea of where exactly I'm hanging it. I feel like that type of height is good.
Where would the mirror go?
So because this is paper mache, even though it is feeling quite sturdy now, I want to make sure that it is not going to break when it's on the wall. The weak points obviously being where the screws are going to go in on this back piece here. So I want to do something to kind of shore up the strength of this hole when I screw it into the wall. So I took a little trip to the hardware shop and I got two things, which I'm hoping in combination will make for a strong and tidy, seamless application of this shelf to this wall. So I got these little metal washers, which are going to go on the underside of this lip right against the wall where I screw them in. And then I got these white hinged screw cover caps, which I'm going to use to camouflage the screws on the front. I'm kind of dreading this job because I'm not sure if it's going to work, but there's only one way to find out. So firstly, let's mark out where I'm going to drill some holes in the wall. This is the kind of thing where it would be handy to have two pairs of hands, but alas, I do not have that available to me today, so we're going to do our best. I realise I need to make the holes bigger in the back of this, so I'm just going to re-stab them with this to make sure that they're big enough. Usually by this stage in a project, I would have a good idea whether or not it's going to work. And actually with this one, I'm really not sure. I really hope it does. Okay, holes are stabbed. Oh my gosh. Upper body. You know, there's jobs that you dread doing, so you put off doing them for ages, and then when eventually you come to do them, they take like 2 minutes and you realise it was all fine and why were you worried in the first place? This isn't one of those jobs. I've been dreading doing this for a reason, because it's a fucking faff. It's hard to like know exactly where I want the holes to be because it's a bendy item and I can't step back to look. That one's there, and that means that's there. That's there. With these things, I just go for it and then regret my decisions later. Let's get some holes in the wall. Now it's time for action. Is that right?
Really far over this way.
No, that's fine. I don't want to have to move this unit again, so I'm just going to cover it with a dust sheet. I'll tape the edge to the wall so that no frisky little dust slips on down the back. I hope that this works. I really hope that this works. A beautiful scattering of holes here. It's like a constellation. That was surprisingly pain-free. Now let's just hope that it's right. I'm using this length of screw. Seems about right. It's a wee bit fiddly. Screws are all in, and now it's just the hypothetically simple matter of screwing it into the wall and hoping that all of these holes line up. Okay. We have a problem with this one. The screw hole in the wall is in the completely wrong position. They all line up bar this little guy here. As we can see, when the rest of them are lined up, the hole in the wall and the screw are just fucking miles off. So that one definitely needs re-drilling. I was wondering whether I could keep it up without that one in. I do think it would be strong enough, but it will be better with that one in, so it won't take too long. Since I know the rest of them line up, that's great news. So I'm going to take it down, re-drill that hole, put it back up, and I'll catch you then, because you've seen that bit before. I redid the hole. I also redid this one because I realised it could be a bit better. And if you're wondering, did I fill those 2 holes underneath that I'm not using? And the answer is of course no. You can't see them, they're hidden by this. So why would I spend my time filling them? I think a lot of confidence in DIY comes from knowing when it's acceptable to cut corners. Oh, it definitely feels sturdy, which I'm pleased about. I get to do the satisfying job of popping all these screw covers on. So glad I got these. I'm going to be using these on everything now. They look so much better. Ooh, it looks good. And yes, it's very, very sturdy indeed. I am so happy with how it's come out. It looks exactly what I wanted it to look like. Yay! And I have decided I'm going to hang this
here mirror here, face height, and I can check myself out before I leave the room. What's this door doing? So I'll get this hung and then I'll show you how it looks. I think that the circle and the squiggle are really pleasing together. It looks pretty good. And now it's time to put this wool onto this shelf. It actually holds a surprising amount of wool. I thought I was going to have a lot left over, but this is all I couldn't fit on there. I can keep extra wool on this top shelf because that's still empty at the moment. It's really great to be able to see all the colours of wool that I have. I've actually only recently started learning to knit, and it turns out I love it. It's like such a satisfying process. I kind of always knew I would love it if and when I tried. And I have a specific pathology that once I have a new hobby, I need to systematise the materials for that hobby. So I'm really happy with this wool shelf. It's practical and I think it looks good. So up here I'm also going to put my jug of knitting needles. That's just going to live right here. Also on the surface I'm going to keep my Lazy Susan because it is one of the best bits of craft kit I've ever had. If you're using clay or paper mache or working on something 3D where you need to access different sides of it and it's sticky and wet, this is what you need. It's obviously just a discount potter's wheel. This one's from IKEA. And I've had it for ages, and this is a good place to just keep it up there. And then finally up here I'm going to keep this vintage plastic pot, my circular knitting needles in the top tier, and in the bottom tier I have tapestry needles and stitch markers. So all my knitting stuff is now together and well organised and quite pretty, if I do say so myself. With the ribbon shelf up and all my wool put away, that was all of my materials finally organised, and I could turn my attentions to the remaining projects on my to-do list. So next up we need to talk about my gallery wall. And as per my original spreadsheet, the plan was simply to fill in this empty gap up here, and I was going to keep everything else as it is. But since making that spreadsheet, I've decided that I actually want to have a change here. With these pieces up, the wall is quite visually busy, which I do enjoy, but now the rest of the room is looking more, I think it would be good to have a break, a palette cleanser, something clean and simple up on this wall. Also because I do a lot of filming at my desk, this is basically my background. I'm very conscious that in a lot of my videos, I have this picture of Jesus over my shoulder, and as a non-Christian woman, maybe I feel a bit uncomfortable about that too. So I basically went shopping around my own flat, looking at the different art pieces I have and thinking about what I could bring in here. And I decided that instead of the gallery wall, I'm just going to have one piece of art on here, and what I'm going to put up is this framed print of the back of someone's head, which I got quite a while ago from eBay. He's been in my hallway, he's been in my utility room, and now he's going to live in here for a while. So all of this is coming down and this guy is going up. How much damage will be on this wall? That's the question of the hour. Oh, our command strip's amazing. No damage at all. Also, one of the reasons I wanted to change this is because I had the vintage Sunday school poster up with this above it. It says "Thou shalt be blessed above all," and someone's written bollocks above it on there. I got this from a car boot years ago, and the bollocks wasn't reading on camera. I think these are so beautiful. They're original ink and pencil drawings. I got these from a charity shop as well, and I think I might put these up in my kitchen. Okay, update. I got the gallery wall down and I've just propped this up on the mantelpiece for now to see how it's going to look. And it just seems really bare to me. It seems really empty, which is making me sad. So the options are I could put the old gallery wall back up, but I don't want to do that. I could do a new gallery wall, including this, fill in the gaps around it, but I'm not really keen on that idea either. I do want to put one thing up on the wall next to it, which is this ceramic fish It's actually a toothbrush holder. I'm thinking I could use it for paintbrushes and stuff that's drying. So I want to put that up next to it there. But beyond that, it's just kind of an empty wall, especially with the wall being so high. I don't know if I love it. And I think part of what I liked about the pieces that were up there before was that there was quite a lot of green, especially in this Monet print of a garden. And I liked that green. So I thought, how could I bring in some green? And then I remembered that I do have some leftover green paint from 2020 when I painted my living room ceiling green, and it is no longer green, and that's a long and annoying story. There's not a huge amount, but there's enough for something, and I'm thinking I'm going to paint above the picture rail just on this chimney breast, just a rectangular block of green. I don't know why I think this will look good, but I just do. So we do have some flaking paint at the top here from Historic Damp. So I'm gonna sand that back and use my peel stop on it. Sadly, I won't be able to paint until this is dry. This bit's boring, but essential.
The next day I went in with a couple of coats of the green paint, and once that was done I thought it was looking pretty good. I think that the pop of green definitely adds something to the space in terms of like visual balance of colour and shape, etc. But I did realise that it was going to need another coat of the green, and I was thinking that maybe I wanted to add something else to this area to finish it off, but I wasn't sure what that should be yet, and I realised that I really needed to see more of this side of the room coming together before I could make those kinds of finishing off decisions.
I also decided that I want to change to the art and things on the top of these shelves here. I bought this 90s Women's Weekly doll fabric on eBay recently. It was in my most recent haul video. I feel like maybe I might want to use it in a sewing project in the future. But for now, because I didn't have a solid idea, I just decided to frame it. Because that way I get to enjoy all of the miscellaneous cut out appendages, like dad leg front, dad leg back. This is very appropriate for this room because this is where I sew. So this guy's going to live up here. Oh yeah, that's a good fit. It fills the wall nicely and it ties in the kind of red and green bits that I've got going. I think I'm happy with that. Yeah, that looks good.
Next, I moved my attention over to the window. I bought this vintage bell pull from eBay a couple of months ago, specifically to hang on this chunky panel in the centre of my window. I thought this would look nice with those flower drawings that I had up on my gallery wall, but since they're gone now, it doesn't really go with anything anymore. But it does have this little frog on it, thus it is nice and it belongs up here. Following my spreadsheet to-dos, I also shortened the curtains a bit to stop them dragging on the floor. Wherever possible, I prefer not to cut curtains shorter because you never know when you might need a longer curtain again. So I just folded over the bottom and really simply hand stitched across. I really love the colour of these curtains, they look so nice with the light coming through them. In the spirit of wanting to add more green into this room, I decided to accent this peachy pink colour with an olive green pelmet, which I made by stitching together a few of these vintage linen napkins that I got a while ago from a charity shop. Finally, I needed to add a curtain tie back, and I realised that this window has a built-in thing for that very reason. We love Victorian houses. I used some scrap fabric from an old dress that I had to make this cute chiffon-y ribbon which will hold the curtain in place. This isn't anything special, but it's functional and I like the subtle colour clash of these two shades of pink. With the curtains back up, I was really liking how this side of the room was looking, and I was keen to get some more to-dos ticked off my list.
So the plan was to put this up on the wall up here, but as I started drilling into the wall, I realised my drill was not the right drill to drill into this specific wall. That can stay leaning on there, and I just need to cover up the hole that I made and put something up there just to balance it out a bit. And I figured, what better than this? This book I have had open on this page, on this shelf for years. I just really love this illustration. And I think I'm just going to have it up there now. It'll fill the space. It'll look nice with a head. There's the new plan.
I also got my little fish guy up on the wall, decorated the fireplace with an energy efficiency fridge sticker, and placed this tiny paint pot ornament on the mantelpiece.
I think that a lot of my styling choices can seem not thought about, thrown together, random, not in a quirky girl kind of way. But ultimately that's all that design is. It's combining different objects and styles, colours, shapes until you have a thing that's pleasing to your specific eye. Everything is subjective. And I actually like this weird mishmash of stuff. Book, head, fish. I added this fridge sticker and I think it's quite an interesting kind of graphic design. Should have stuck it on the fridge, but I've had it for 3 years and it's never been on there, so it can live on here. To me, this wall now is minimal, and yet it's got a good amount of fun little details. Each of these things individually makes me smile, and together I feel like it's quite clean and it works visually.
Behind the scenes, I'd also been puzzling over a solution for this to do. I needed something to stop these paper rolls from constantly falling over and whacking me in the back of the head while I'm at my desk, and this is what I'd come up with.
But here it is. It's a weird looking contraption. It's basically just a bendable arm with holes. It's got wire inside it, then it's padded. I did try and replicate the ribbon shape from my shelves, but to be honest, you're not really going to see it much. So, think that height's about right.
It's kind of a creepy looking thing, to be honest. It's like a tongue.
Opens the gate, let the pigs into the pen. Close. Voila!
I was getting close to finishing now, and with everything up around it, I could finally make a decision on how to finish off that green rectangle at the top of my gallery wall. And this is where I'm going to get deep for a moment. I want to acknowledge that life extends beyond the four walls of this art room, and as an artist, the things I create are almost always informed in some way by the world around me. For that reason, I think it's important that I talk about this in this video. The last 6 months have been a particularly horrifying and enraging time to be alive. We've been witnessing the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza live streamed every day onto our phones. We've also been watching the world's response to that genocide and seeing the various ways that people in power, and perhaps people also in our personal lives, will disregard fact, will lie and will smear in order to uphold the status quo. Despite overwhelming evidence of countless atrocities committed, I still find that I'm met with apathy from some people when I try and raise the conversation of Palestine. It's maddening to be told that everything is okay or not to worry, when it's so obvious that things are not okay. And these are things that we should collectively not be okay with in the slightest. In the face of such blatant gaslighting, we have to try and comfort and reassure ourselves that what we're doing is important and that what we're doing is right, so that we can continue to fight back against a deeply unfair and corrupt system. I wanted to paint this simple mural in this room as a reminder to myself that actually it's okay to go against the status quo, it's okay to think for yourself, and it is okay to resist. So that's what that's about.
Next up, this to do. I was planning on using a load of these vintage word cards to fill up the border of this room, but now that I've got the It's Okay mural up there kind of taking centre stage, I'm thinking that having loads of words above the picture rail might be overkill. So I've scrapped that idea, but I am going to keep the ones that I already have up there because I like those ones. And now finally, we are on to the last little corner of this room and my last couple of to-dos. I have shortened the cupboard curtain as planned and rehung it. I decided against adding any jazzy details in the end because it is fine as it is and I do not need to embellish everything. I do have this hook attached to the side here so I can easily pull the curtain to one side if I want to access the cupboard more easily, but I think that for the most part I will keep it closed. I really want to minimise the visual clutter in this side of the room. I designated this general area as a photography/filming space, so I want it to be fairly plain and inoffensive. I have a load of old clothes and things I need to sell, so this area needs to facilitate the hanging and photographing of said clothes. Thus, it just needs to be mostly empty with a hook and a coat hanger. So here is a hook and here is a coat hanger. These are both Frankenstein paper mache creations because of course they are. And they're going to go up on this wall. I wanted this hook to be red to go with my mirror. Because I need to keep the wall underneath this clear, I of course want to fill up the space above it instead. So I will be hanging yet another paper mache abomination. This time it's this cloud-shaped picture ledge which I made kind of on a whim because I thought it would look cute with the rainbow up there. It's just another place to put a piece of artwork. So I'm going to get this up on the wall as well. Let's put Claude back up for the time being. I might switch him over later. Ta-da!
I brought back the vintage wool rug which was in here before, and also tucked this colour change floor lamp into this corner. To this day, this is the only Instagram ad purchase that I've ever made. It's pretty tacky to be honest, but I don't dislike it. I hung my blanket ladder up on the back of the door. This is a handy thing to have around for chucking coat hangers or whatnot if I'm taking photos. And finally, I brought back in this homemade pink blanket chair that I made a couple of years ago, and I plonked it back here because, to be honest, there's nowhere else in the flat for this monstrosity to live, and I do like looking at it.
And with that, my to-do list is complete. Now I've just got to wait for a day when my hair looks good and when the sun comes out to film the final reveal. Until then, let's take a moment to remember what the room looked like before.
During the first 3 years of living in this flat, I had managed to turn this once peeling spare bedroom into a functioning, albeit cluttered, home office space. As an avid maker and collector of tat, this room was getting increasingly filled up with things that I was making or things that I was bringing home from whatever second-hand shop that I found myself in that day. So by the start of this year, this room was really bursting at the seams with an assortment of art materials, overflow decor pieces, and half-finished projects. The walls and surfaces were also pretty filled up with a mixture of clothes, furniture and artwork, things I'd made and collected and thrown up on the walls over the years, which had been put up initially without too much thought and didn't necessarily all work together. The whole room was just in need of a rethink and a freshen up, so that's exactly what I gave it.
And here's what the room looks like now. I did do some final tinkering around off camera, moving little bits and trying to get the visual balance like just right. I brought a few extra bits of decor into the room and a couple more plants. I think the touches of green that are now kind of peppered around the space have really helped it to come together and feel complete in my mind. I'm glad that I devoted some time to clearing out and organising, and I'm quite shocked by how much bigger the room feels now. I did get rid of a few things as well as move some things into different areas in the flat, but for the most part what's in here now is what was in here before. But now I can very confidently say that I know exactly where each of my tools and materials are, which has to be worth something. I'm really pleased with the various paper maché projects that I did for this room, from all of the bespoke pegboard fittings to my wall shelves and my storage divider. I think they make fun little accent elements in the space without being too tacky and overwhelming, which in hindsight I wonder if the leg shelf would have been. I don't know. I actually didn't mention it at all in this video, but I also did make this paper mache storage thing, which is for holding my camera stuff and hard drives and things, and which is painted to match all of the pegboard accessories. And this lives here on my Billy bookcase. I'm happy to have had a refresh of all of the art up on the wall because that's really food for the brain in an art room. And I'm also not mad at my first ever attempt at a mural, if that's what you would call this. Overall, I'm just really happy with how this room turned out, and I hope that you enjoyed watching this video. If you made it this far, please consider leaving me a like or a comment or even subscribe. I am only 4 away from 60 followers, so I'm basically already a celebrity, and yet I haven't let fame get to my head. The next makeover video I'm planning is going to be of my small toilet room, and that's sure to be an interesting video because even I have no clue yet how it's going to look. I also had a comment not long ago suggesting that I do a full flat tour video to show kind of the state of things now, what's been done, what still needs doing. So I think I will do that too. Another reason to subscribe. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you for watching. Bye!